On July 21, 2026, the National Weather Service put New York City under a tornado watch. 5 tornado warnings went out across New York State that same day. And somewhere in that city, millions of people looked at their phones and thought some version of the same comfortable thought. Tornadoes don't hit big cities. You have probably thought it too. Maybe about your city. Here is the problem with that thought. It is not protection. It is a coincidence dressed up as a rule. By the end of this, you will know exactly why big cities look untouchable on a map, why that appearance is real, and why the reason behind it should worry you more than the myth ever did. And you will know it the way scientists know it, from a dartboard. Start with the thing that makes this myth so believable. Because it is believable. Look at the record, and cities really do seem to get skipped. Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. Sprawling, dense, obvious targets sitting right there for decades, mostly untouched in their downtown cores. That is not your imagination. That pattern is real. So people came up with explanations, 3 of them, roughly. And here's where it gets interesting, because 2 of those explanations are folklore, and the 3rd one is the truth nobody finds satisfying. Let's take them in order. Explanation number 1, the skyscrapers. This one is everywhere. The idea is that a wall of tall buildings breaks up a tornado, the way a breakwater breaks up a wave. All that concrete and steel and turbulence, chopping the funnel apart before it can settle. It is a lovely image. It is also backwards, and to see why, you have to know where a tornado actually begins, not on the ground. That is the mistake. A tornado does not start as a funnel touching down and then grow upward. It starts as rotation inside a thunderstorm, thousands of feet above your head, in a rotating updraft that meteorologists call a mesocyclone. Say it like this: mesocyclone. The rotating heart of a storm. That rotation tightens and stretches downward. What you see reaching the ground is the bottom tip of something enormous that was already spinning long before it got anywhere near a building. Now put a skyscraper next to that. The tallest buildings in most American downtowns run a few hundred feet. The rotating column above them can extend miles into the sky. So the question is not whether a building can survive a tornado. The question is whether a 300-foot object at the very bottom of an 8-mile-tall rotating column can interrupt it. It cannot. It is the wrong scale by a factor of over 100. Could a dense cluster of towers wobble the shape of the funnel right at street level? Sure. Briefly. But the engine is upstairs, and the engine does not care about your architecture. So when a tornado misses your downtown, the city didn't do that. Explanation number 2 is much harder to dismiss. And I want to be honest with you here, because this one is partly right. It is called the urban heat island. Cities are hotter than the countryside around them. Asphalt, concrete, rooftops, and engines soak up heat all day and release it slowly. Step from a park onto a parking lot in August and you can feel it on your face. That temperature difference is completely real, and it does change the air above a city. The claim is that this dome of warm, churning air disrupts storms before they arrive. And people will tell you they have seen it happen. Storm rolls in, splits, goes around, closes back up on the far side. Here is the uncomfortable part. There is research supporting that. A study led by Dev Niyogi, then at Purdue and now at the University of Texas at Austin, looked at 10 years of radar imagery over the Indianapolis metro area. Storms did tend to split closer to the city and merge again downwind. More than 60% of the storms examined changed their structure over the urban area, compared with about 25% over rural land. So the effect is measurable. Cities do modify thunderstorms, which sounds like the myth just won. It didn't, and the reason is a distinction that gets lost every single time this comes up. Modifying a thunderstorm is not the same as disarming a supercell. Most thunderstorms are small, disorganized, and genuinely fragile. Nudge the air underneath one, and you can absolutely change its shape or split it in two. That is what the Indianapolis data captured. A supercell is a different animal. It is a storm built around that self-sustaining rotating updraft, drawing energy from a region hundreds of miles wide. From wind shear and moisture and instability operating at a scale a city cannot touch. The few degrees of extra warmth over downtown is a rounding error inside that budget. Ken Blumenfeld, a researcher at the University of Minnesota who has specifically studied urban tornadoes, put it about as plainly as it can be put. There is no real evidence that tornadoes avoid major cities or downtowns. The heat island is real. The shield is not. The city didn't do that either. Which leaves explanation number 3. The one that is actually true, and the one nobody wants, because it is boring. Cities are small. That is it. That is the answer, and I know how that lands. So let me show it to you the way a climatologist showed it, because the moment you see the picture, it stops being boring and starts being unsettling. Victor Gensini is a climatologist at Northern Illinois University, and his image for this is a dartboard. Picture 1. The whole board is the United States. Every ring, every wedge, edge to edge. Now find the double bullseye. That tiny circle at dead center, the one you almost never hit on purpose. That is downtown. According to the Center for Sustainable Systems at the University of Michigan, urban land makes up roughly 3% of the total land area of the United States. 3%. 97% of the country is something else. Farmland, forest, mountains, desert, empty road. Now, the thrower. The atmosphere gets somewhere north of 1,000 tornadoes a year in this country, and it throws every one of them blindfolded. No aim, no preference, no opinion about zoning. So run the math on a blindfolded thrower and a bullseye that small. Most darts land in the wide open rings. Not because the bullseye repels them, because the bullseye is a sliver of the board. And that is the whole mechanism. There is no shield, no dome, no wall of towers. There is a very small target, a very large board, and a thrower who is not looking. Which means the safety you have been enjoying has a name. It is not engineering, it is odds. And here is where the dartboard turns on you. Because there is a second question hiding in it, and almost nobody asks it. Not, how often do tornadoes hit cities? But, how often do they hit cities compared to how much space cities take up? Divide by area, and the picture inverts. Blumenfeld's finding is that on a per-unit area basis, major cities, including downtown areas, see tornadoes at least as often as rural land does. Possibly more. Read that again slowly. Cities are not being skipped. They are being hit at the ordinary rate for a piece of ground that size. They just are not very much ground. The myth had the pattern right and the cause exactly backwards. You are never watching tornadoes avoid cities. You are watching a small target get missed at exactly the rate a small target gets missed. And when the odds do land, the record is not subtle about it. 1998, a tornado tore through downtown Nashville and blew out thousands of windows in the skyscrapers. 28, an EF2 moved directly through downtown Atlanta and damaged the Georgia Dome during a basketball tournament. 2019, an EF3 carved through densely populated Dallas and caused around $1.5 billion in damage. 2020, Nashville again. Those are not near misses. Those are direct hits on the double bullseye. But the one I keep coming back to happened before any of them, and it is the one that should have ended this myth for good. May 27, 1896. St. Louis, Missouri. At the time, St. Louis was one of the 5 largest cities in America, 500,000 people on the bank of the Mississippi. And spanning that river was the Eads Bridge, the first major bridge in the world built from true steel, which is worth pausing on because of what people said about it. They called it tornado-proof, not as a joke, as a selling point. 20 years of storms and floods had rolled past it and the bridge had held, and that reputation hardened into something people genuinely believed. A structure so modern that weather had been solved. Just after 5 in the afternoon, the sky over the city turned green. The tornado touched down about 6 miles west of the bridge and went straight through the central city. Homes, factories, hospitals, churches, block after block. Then it reached the river, destroyed the boats in the harbor, and arrived at the bridge. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, roughly 300 feet of the bridge's eastern approach was torn away. Stone blocks weighing several tons were thrown 100 feet. And investigators found one detail in the wreckage that has outlived everything else about that day. A wooden plank, 2 inches by 10, driven clean through a wrought iron plate on the tornado-proof bridge. 255 people were confirmed dead. Some estimates run higher because bodies swept into the Mississippi were never counted. It remains the 3rd deadliest tornado in United States history. The bridge is still standing today. Trains still cross it. It was never tornado-proof. It was just standing in the 97% for 20 years, and then one afternoon it wasn't. That is what the dartboard actually promises. Not safety. A delay. So why does any of this matter to you, sitting where you are right now? Because the myth does not cost you a trivia question. It costs you seconds. When the warning hits your phone and you live downtown, the belief that cities are somehow protected is the thing that makes you finish the sentence you were typing. Check the window first. Wait to see if it looks serious. Every one of those is a few seconds spent, and a tornado warning is often measured in minutes. And in a city, those seconds buy something specific. Patrick Marsh, a meteorologist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Storm Prediction Center, has pointed out what the real urban danger is. And it is not the wind pulling the building down. It is the glass. A downtown is thousands of tons of window. Tornado-strength winds turn a skyline of glass into airborne blades moving at highway speed in a place packed with more people per square foot than anywhere else in the country. The buildings mostly survive. The glass is the problem. Which brings up the last thing, and it is the reason this matters more now than it did when your parents heard the same myth. Gensini calls it the expanding bullseye effect. Cities are not staying the size they were. Suburbs and development keep spreading outward every year into land that used to be farmland. Storms that would have crossed empty cornfields a generation ago now cross subdivisions. The dartboard has not changed. The bullseye is getting bigger. So the one thing worth taking from all of this is small and unglamorous. When a tornado warning is issued for your area, go to the lowest floor, into an interior room, away from every window, and stay there. Whether you live in a farmhouse or on the 14th floor, the atmosphere has never once checked which. So the next time a tornado watch lights up your phone in the middle of a city, and some quiet part of your brain reaches for that old comfort that this kind of thing doesn't happen here, you will know exactly what that feeling is. It is not a shield. It is a dartboard. Your city has been sitting in the empty rings, getting missed for as long as you have been alive. That is a genuinely good place to be. It is just not the same thing as being safe. And if the idea of something enormous hiding in plain sight got your attention, wait until you find out where Florida's giant pythons actually came from. Because it is not the hurricane everyone blames. Subscribe and keep finding out how the world actually works.